It was one of those mornings where everything feels just slightly off. The kind of morning where the sun's light looks too white through the blinds, and your body wakes up without asking permission. I don't even remember what time it was, maybe a little after 6, but I was thirsty, not groggy, just dry and restless. So I slipped out of bed quietly, not wanting to wake Rachel. The house was still. Our dog, Sam, wasn't even moving yet. I padded into the kitchen, yawning, and reached for a glass when I heard a soft buzz. It came from the windowsill by the kitchen sink. At first, I thought it was my phone, but mine was charging upstairs. Then I saw hers, Rachel's phone, face up on the windowsill, screen still glowing from a message that had just come through. She never left her phone downstairs overnight. Ever. That was the first crack in what had been, up to that point, a normal Saturday morning. I glanced at it out of habit. Not snooping, not intentionally. Just curious. Just a reflex. And then I saw it. You smell better than my husband. This morning was perfect. Ava, design client. The world didn't explode. It just paused. I stared at the words for a second, maybe longer. Read them again to make sure I wasn't imagining it. My heart hadn't even started racing yet. My brain was still trying to rationalize, to build a story around the message that didn't end in betrayal. Ava, design client. The name alone should have meant nothing, but it didn't. Rachel had mentioned her once or twice. They'd met through work, I think. She said Ava was eccentric, quirky, always dramatic. But I'd never met her. Never even seen a photo. Still, no amount of quirks or drama could explain that text. You smell better than my husband. Not you look better. Not you were fun to hang out with. Not a compliment about design work or even a clumsy joke. That was int asterisk mate. Sensory. Personal. This morning was perfect. What morning? This morning? Was that a joke too? My hand rested against the counter for balance. I suddenly felt like the floor had tilted 2 degrees sideways. Then I heard her. Footsteps. Barefoot. Coming downstairs with that usual lazy weekend rhythm. I looked up just as Rachel walked in, wearing one of my old college t-shirts and her hair up in a loose bun. She looked half asleep and completely at ease. No tension in her shoulders. No guilt in her eyes. Until she saw where my gaze was. Her eyes followed mine and landed on the phone. And to my shock, she didn't flinch. Didn't panic. Didn't even blink. She just walked over, picked it up, read the message, and gave a small, almost amused smile. Oh, she said lightly, like we'd stumbled onto a funny meme or a grocery list she forgot to delete. That's Ava. She sends the weirdest messages. That one's a joke. We have this ongoing thing where she pretends I'm her mistress. Long-running inside joke. She must have meant to send it to someone else and got confused. She turned the phone face down on the counter and reached past me to the cupboard for coffee filters. You're tired, babe, she added casually, as the coffee machine started sputtering to life. Don't read too much into weird texts. Ava's nuts, I swear. Then she wrapped her arms around my waist from behind, resting her head on my back like it was any other Saturday. I stood there, still frozen, still gripping the counter like it was the only thing tethering me to the kitchen floor. Because while her voice was calm, almost teasing, her movements rehearsed, there was something underneath, a flaw in the performance, a silence that lasted a beat too long after she read the message, an ease that felt manufactured. Rachel wasn't confused or embarrassed. She was ready. That scared me more than the message itself. I didn't say anything at first. Didn't accuse. What was I supposed to say? Your fake client accidentally x'd you at dawn? I didn't even know how I'd sound saying that out loud. So I let it hang in the air while she moved through the kitchen like nothing happened. Music floated in from the Bluetooth speaker. Some indie playlist she always puts on during the weekends. Acoustic guitars and soft voices. She danced a little as she stirred in the sugar. You're quiet, she said over her shoulder, like she was trying to snap me out of a daze. Everything okay? I nodded slowly, still staring at the counter. Yeah, just tired. Her smile returned as she handed me a cup of coffee and kissed me on the temple. See? That's what I said. And just like that, she floated into the living room, barefoot, humming, checking the thermostat like it was the most important thing in the world. But that morning, that exact moment, split something in me. A line was drawn even if I didn't fully realize it yet. It wasn't just the message. It wasn't even that she explained it away so easily. It was the way she resumed life without a single tremor. No apology. No hint of concern. Just redirection. Coffee. A hug. Playlist. That was when I understood. The message wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a joke. It was a crack in the facade. And Rachel? She wasn't trying to fix the crack. She was trying to paint over it. But the paint was too thin. And I had seen everything I needed to see. The days after that morning passed in a strange kind of fog. Everything looked the same. Our house, her smile, the way the sunlight filtered into the kitchen around 8 a.m. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something underneath had shifted. It was like waking up in your own bed and suddenly not recognizing the shape of the room. Rachel didn't change. Or maybe she did, but in such subtle ways that if I hadn't been paying attention, I wouldn't have noticed. But I was paying attention now. Every little moment stuck to me like Velcro. That text, "You smell better than my husband," ran on a loop in the back of my mind. I'd hear it in between sips of coffee, or when I'd pull into the driveway and see her car already there. I stopped looking at her the same way. I didn't even realize it at first, but my eyes were scanning. Her clothes, her expressions, her tone. Like I was reading subtitles on a show where I no longer trusted the dialogue. I started remembering things. Things that had seemed harmless before. Like the wardrobe change a couple of months ago. One day she was in her usual yoga pants and sweaters, and the next she was wearing these short-fitted dresses, heels, perfume I didn't recognize. At the time, I thought, maybe she's just feeling herself. Maybe this is good. I even complimented her. She smiled and said, "It's for me." With a wink. I bought that. I wanted to. But now I was seeing it differently. Like a trail of breadcrumbs I'd ignored. Her work schedule started shifting, too. She was coming home later. At first, it was just 15 minutes, then an hour. "Client wanted revisions," she'd say. Or, "Got stuck behind an accident on Elm." And I never pushed. That was my mistake. I never pushed. Then came the nights she needed space. Nights she'd light a candle in the guest room and say she just wanted to read alone. "I love you, babe, I do," she'd tell me. "But sometimes I need my own headspace. You get that, right?" And I did. I thought I did. Who doesn't want to unwind alone sometimes? But then she went on a yoga retreat. Just 2 days. Some cabin up north with her studio girls. No cell service, she claimed. I offered to drive her there. She laughed and said no. "I'm fine. You'd be bored out of your mind anyway." I barely slept those nights. And when she came back, she smelled like firewood and something floral. She was in a good mood, too good. She hugged me with a kind of overcompensation, like she was trying to convince both of us nothing had happened. And then there was the password. We'd always shared everything. Same phone plan, open laptops, even the grocery list was in a synced note. But around the same time as the retreat, her MacBook got a new password. When I asked why, she said her clients' files needed extra privacy. "It's a security thing," she said with a tired smile. "You wouldn't want your business docs floating around, right?" I nodded. I didn't even think to question it. But it wasn't just a security thing. It was a wall, and it had gone up right under my nose. There was another memory, too. One that I had buried deep until that text dragged it back into the light. It was Rachel's friend Leah's birthday. Big backyard gathering. Drinks, lights strung up in trees, fire pit glowing. I showed up late, was supposed to help my brother move a couch but got done early. I didn't text her I was coming. Just thought it would be a nice surprise. I parked down the street and came through the side gate. As I passed by the garden fence, I heard her voice. That laugh. Her real laugh. The one she reserves for when she feels unobserved. I stopped. She was behind the hedge with someone, though I couldn't see who. Her voice drifted through the leaves. "My husband," she said, laughing softly. "Please. He's sweet, but he's so safe. He doesn't suspect a thing. She was tipsy, probably, maybe joking. But the way she said it, almost lovingly, like she pitied me, it stuck. Even back then, I'd felt something, a flutter of doubt. But when I stepped around the corner and called her name, she turned with a smile, arms wide open, as if I'd caught her in the middle of a fairy tale, not a confession. Now, remembering it, it felt like finding the corner piece of a puzzle. The kind of piece you don't realize is important until it locks everything else into place. That sentence had haunted me more than I wanted to admit. He doesn't suspect a thing. She'd been right, at least back then. I'd been blind, or maybe I'd trained myself not to see. It was easier, more comfortable. Because to admit something was wrong would have meant breaking the spell of our marriage, the rhythm we'd built, the comfort, the trust. It would have meant questioning not just her, but everything I thought I knew about us. But now it was like my brain had shifted into a new gear. Every glance, every half-smile, every just going to run out for some milk became suspect. She'd walk in the room and my ears would ring a little. My stomach would twist when her phone buzzed. I started watching the little things, who she texted, the way she typed quickly and then smiled before hitting send. How she always tilted her phone away just slightly. The way she called me babe a little too often, like it was a shield. I started to pull back, not overtly, but in those quiet ways you don't notice until they've already taken root. I stopped asking how her day was. I let her talk, nodded, smiled, but didn't dig deeper. I didn't want to hear the lies. Because now I knew they were there. And the worst part? She seemed happier. Like her secret life gave her a glow. Her cheeks were rosier. She hummed while making breakfast. She had energy again, like she was plugged into a socket I didn't have access to. And I hated that I noticed. I hated that I still loved her. Because love makes you want to protect someone, even from your own suspicion. But I couldn't unsee what I'd seen. Couldn't unhear that message. And once trust cracks, even a whisper can echo like a scream. The line between suspicion and certainty is thinner than people think. It doesn't take much, a glance, a slip of the tongue, a gut feeling that refuses to sit still. But once you cross that line, there's no going back. You stop asking yourself if something's wrong and start asking how deep it goes. After that morning, after the text, and the too perfect calm that followed, I knew I couldn't keep pretending. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't even angry, just restless. Everything in me was stretched taut like a rubber band about to snap. Rachel acted like nothing had changed. She kissed me goodbye like always, texted heart emojis, sent photos of her lunch. But I couldn't play along anymore. I needed to know. Not guess. Not wonder. No. So I lied. Told her I had meetings all day. Said I'd be out late, that I might crash at a colleague's place if it ran long. I even packed a gym bag to sell the lie. She barely blinked. Just kissed me on the cheek and said, "Okay, babe. Have fun." That was a Thursday. I stayed in town, parked a few blocks away from her office, and waited. Her building was downtown, a refurbished warehouse turned design studio with big glass windows and exposed brick. She usually worked till 6. That night, she left at 6:42. I followed. She walked quickly, dressed in one of those new outfits, tight black jeans, boots, that same floral perfume that I'd grown to resent. She didn't look nervous. Didn't check over her shoulder. That was what struck me most, her ease. She turned onto a side street and got into a car parked at the curb. Not a taxi. Not a rideshare. Just a black SUV. I couldn't see the driver clearly, but they didn't hesitate when she got in. I waited a few beats, then pulled out and followed. We drove for about 30 minutes, winding through side streets, heading west, past the city limits. I stayed 2 cars back, switching lanes when needed, praying I didn't get spotted. My palms were sweating on the wheel. I kept telling myself maybe it's innocent, maybe it's a coworker, maybe she's meeting a client. But I didn't believe it. Not really. Eventually, they turned onto a narrow road that led to a lakeside hotel. Not a big chain. Not the kind with business conferences and wedding parties. No, this was smaller. Hidden. Discreet. She got out of the car. So did he. Tall. Dark coat. Confident. He walked around the front of the SUV and without hesitation they embraced. Not a hug. An embrace. Slow. Familiar. An asterisk mate. I felt like I'd swallowed a mouthful of ice water. My fingers locked around the steering wheel so tightly they ached. Then she kissed him. Not on the lips, on the neck, right beneath his jawline. The way you do when you know someone. When you know their scent. When you've done it before. She laughed after. Said something I couldn't hear. He touched her waist. She didn't flinch. They walked inside together, side by side, like it was the most normal thing in the world. I didn't follow them in. Didn't storm the lobby or pound on the door. I just sat there, engine off, watching the entrance like it would give me more answers if I stared hard enough. The sun set behind the hills, painting the lake in oranges and pinks, and still I sat. Cars came and went. Lights flickered on in the rooms. Somewhere nearby, a dog barked. The world kept moving, unaware, or maybe just indifferent, to the fact that my life had just folded in half. Around 9, I drove home. I didn't cry. Didn't yell. Didn't call her. Just drove. The house was dark when I got back. Sam barked once, then settled. I went upstairs, took off my shoes, brushed my teeth like it was any other night. Then I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling fan spinning above me, waiting for the numbness to give way to something else. But it didn't. Not yet. Because when suspicion becomes confirmation, grief doesn't hit all at once. It seeps in slowly, like a leak in the ceiling that eventually floods the whole house. I didn't confront her the next morning. Or the one after. I couldn't. I needed space. Time. And most of all, I needed control. Because now I knew. I had seen it. And there was no going back. I didn't say anything. Not that night. Not the next morning. Not even when she came home with that familiar hum in her voice, like she'd just come back from something normal. Something innocent. She tossed her bag by the door and kissed me on the cheek like she always did. "God, I'm tired," she said, slipping off her shoes. "I swear, Ava's edits are gonna K***ll me. You wanna do takeout tonight?" I nodded. Smiled. Ordered Thai. She didn't notice that I barely touched my food. Didn't notice the way I looked at her, really looked. Maybe she thought she'd pulled it off. Maybe she thought that night by the lake had vanished into the ether like steam from the shower. But it hadn't. It was still with me, sitting in the back of my mind like an uninvited guest. And now I had a choice. I could explode. Yell. Demand answers. I could confront her in the middle of dinner, ask her why she kissed him like that, why she lied, why she let me carry the weight of pretending everything was okay. But I didn't. Because yelling would make me the unstable one. Yelling would hand her the narrative. So I said nothing. I built a fortress out of silence. Brick by brick. She thought I was still asleep when she snuck glances at her phone in the morning. She thought I didn't notice when she took longer showers with the door locked. She thought I didn't hear her pause mid-conversation when I walked into the room. But I noticed everything now. I was done being caught off guard. Instead of confronting her, I started preparing. I opened a new bank account. Just a small one at first. Moved over a few $100s under the pretense of a side project I'd mentioned a few times. She didn't ask questions. I didn't offer explanations. Next, I pulled our joint financial records. Not because I thought she'd drained anything, but because I needed to understand exactly what was ours. What I could protect. Then I changed my passwords. Every one of them. Bank, email, cloud backups. Nothing dramatic, just enough to create separation. To reclaim my space. I started carrying a flash drive. Kept it hidden in the garage behind an old paint can. On it, I stored copies of everything: our mortgage, insurance, credit statements, family photos. Just in case. This wasn't paranoia. This was survival. And in that process, I started seeing her differently. Not just as someone who cheated, but as someone who underestimated me. Who thought I'd stay clueless forever. Who thought I was too kind, too quiet, too safe to ever walk away. She grew more relaxed. More careless. She began humming around the house again, the same old happy tunes she used to sing when we were newlyweds. I realized it was a pattern, a cycle. Guilt, then comfort. Comfort, then routine. Routine, then silence. And silence was her favorite stage. It meant she'd gotten away with it. But I wasn't silent because I was fooled. I was silent because I was watching. That Sunday, she asked if I wanted to go to brunch with her and her friends. I said no, told her I had errands, that I was feeling off. She didn't press. Just shrugged and said, next time. I watched from the upstairs window as she pulled out of the driveway, sunglasses on, music playing. Probably texting him before she even hit the corner. I didn't follow her. Didn't need to. I already knew enough. My silence had become my sharpest tool. It gave me the time to plan. To prepare. To observe without being observed. And the more I kept quiet, the more she leaned into the fantasy that I was still in the dark. That was her mistake. Because when someone believes you're not a threat, they stop hiding. And when they stop hiding, that's when you finally see the truth in full light. 3 days after she came back from her latest work trip, this one to Boston, apparently I got a call I didn't expect. It was her brother, Nathan. We weren't close. Not because we disliked each other, but because we just never had much reason to talk. He lived 2 hours away and always felt more like a polite acquaintance than family. We'd see each other at holidays, exchange small talk, maybe share a beer if the evening got slow. So when I saw his name flash across my phone, I assumed something had happened. An emergency. A family issue. Maybe he'd misdialed. But when I answered, his voice was sharp. Nervous. "Hey, Eric," he said after a long breath. "You got a minute?" I stepped out to the garage, closing the door behind me. "Yeah. Everything okay?" I'm not really sure how to start this. Look, I didn't want to get involved. I didn't plan to. But I saw something. And I can't sit on it. He paused, and I could hear him walking, wind in the background, the sound of shoes on gravel. "I was at a business dinner," he said. "Downtown. A hotel ballroom thing. We were wrapping up drinks when I saw Rachel. My heart didn't jump. It didn't need to. I already knew where this was going. She was there with a man. Tall, dark suit. I thought maybe it was someone from work, so I walked over to say hi. But before I got to them, I stopped. She didn't see me. They were laughing. Her hand was on his chest. Then I heard her say. He hesitated. I could hear him swallow on the line. She said, "Don't worry, I'm not married. I'm a designer. I'm free." There it was. Confirmation. Not just of the affair, but of the double life. She wasn't just lying to me. She was living a second truth. Pretending to be someone else entirely. I didn't speak for a long time. Nathan kept going quietly. I stepped back before she saw me. I didn't want to embarrass her. Or you. I didn't know what to do. But it's been eating at me, man. I couldn't hold it anymore. "Thank you," I said. That's all I could say. He let out a long breath. "You okay?" "No," I replied. "But I will be." There was a pause. "Let me know if you need anything." "Seriously. I mean it." I thanked him again and hung up. Then I stood in the garage for a long time, the cold seeping through my socks, the quiet buzzing in my ears. I wasn't angry. That surprised me. There was no outburst. No overwhelming pain. Just clarity. Because the decision had already been made. This was just the final confirmation I didn't want but got anyway. And Nathan unintentionally had given me a gift. The truth. Undeniable, unvarnished, ugly, but clean. Because now I didn't have to explain to myself why I felt like I was drowning in my own house. I didn't have to second-guess the way she smiled at her phone or the new perfume or the locked laptop. Now I knew. Rachel was no longer pretending just with me. She was pretending to be someone else entirely. Free. Unattached. Unclaimed. And she was proud of it. That night, when she got home, she was all warmth and light. Made pasta. Opened a bottle of wine. Played jazz. "Long day?" she asked, curling up on the couch, toes tucked under a blanket. "Pretty long," I said. She smiled and took a sip of wine, her eyes dancing in the lamplight. "You should take a break soon. We should go somewhere." "We?" "Yeah," she said, without missing a beat. "Just the two of us. Like old times?" And just like that, I saw it all clearly. The performance. The lines. The script. But what she didn't know, I had already left the theater. Now I was behind the curtain watching her act. And soon, the show would end. It was a quiet Sunday. The kids were at Rachel's mother's for the weekend, the house still like it was holding its breath. I'd waited long enough. I placed her laptop on the dining table. Her phone beside it. A folder with bank statements, *TS, hotel receipts, and a printed photo of her with him at the lake. On top, a simple note in my handwriting. Now I know everything. Then I walked out the door. No screaming. No accusations. Just silence and facts. That afternoon, my phone buzzed nonstop. Calls. Texts. Her name flashing over and over, then switching to unknown numbers. She sent photos of us, old ones. Said we could fix it. That she still loved me. I didn't reply. She came to the new apartment that night, one I had quietly rented weeks earlier. She knocked softly. When I opened the door, she stood there in jeans and a hoodie, mascara smudged, eyes wide like a kid caught stealing. "Eric," she said. "Please." I let her in. She stepped inside, looking around at the empty furniture, the fresh start she hadn't been invited to. "You spied on me?" she asked, voice sharp with hurt. "You invaded my privacy?" I raised a hand. "Don't." She blinked. Her face cracked. "I made a mistake, Eric. A stupid one. But we can fix this." "No," I said quietly. "We can't. I didn't mean to hurt you." "But you did." She started crying. Real tears, maybe? Or just rehearsed ones. But it didn't matter anymore. I'd seen enough. Words couldn't fix what actions had destroyed. 8 months later, I was living in a different city. Teaching at a small private college, grading essays, drinking better coffee. I found a rhythm again, my own. The kids visited every other weekend. When they were with me, I was different. Lighter. More present. I learned how to braid my daughter's hair. My son and I built a model spaceship from scratch. We laughed. We burned pancakes. We learned together how to be okay. Rachel tried, sometimes. She sent messages, photos of the kids, updates, gifts. At first, I replied politely. Then, not at all. I wasn't angry anymore. I was just done. At our last family event, our son proudly told a neighbor, "Dad bakes now." He made the cake. She laughed, surprised. I smiled, because I wasn't hiding anymore. I wasn't in the background, and I didn't leave because of the affair. I left because I refused to be a stranger in my own life. Now, I was living it fully, and that was more than enough.